Well, it's happening. 2025 is starting to look far less dry for Nintendo. More and more news is pouring in about Pokemon Legends ZA, the Metroid Prime series, the Switch 2, and now another series that will get a huge new release this year to help the Switch 1 end with a big bang. So how do we know this? What's going on? Well, this news comes way of Insider PH Brazil. They're a leaker found to be credible mostly for accurately predicting dates and info for Nintendo Directs. So yeah, like I said, this same person is letting us in on another not so well kept secret by Nintendo. There's a third big game coming to Switch 1 this year that we didn't yet know about. Currently, the only big games we did know of coming to Switch 1, even with the Switch 2 on the horizon, are Pokemon Legends ZA and Metroid Prime 4. Though many of us believe that even these games will probably have Switch 2 versions anyways. As far as what this third release could be, the leak revealed that it's a fairly niche franchise, but a highly loved one. That means whatever this series is, it's likely categorized as a cult classic. Saying it's niche tells us that the gameplay is likely something particular, either being something very turn-based or very action-based, leaving little room for broad appeal. It also rules out Mario Kart 9, which we know we're getting on the Switch 2 because it was in the reveal trailer for that system. Mario Kart is literally Nintendo's highest selling game, so it definitely doesn't classify as niche. First, I'll chime in with what I hope this game is, before getting into the more realistic possibilities. If you've been on my channel, you know the first niche Nintendo exclusive that pops into my head is Bayonetta. I'd be ecstatic for another Bayonetta game, and I also think personally that the series needs more games, not only because it deserves it, but because there's still a lot of work to be done to clean up the story from Bayonetta 3, mainly that awful ending. Bayonetta Origins did a great job in starting this cleanup back in 2023, and nearly everyone that played that agreed it was surprisingly one of the best games in the series, despite it being a spin-off title. Now, if we do get a Bayonetta game this year, it would obviously not be Bayonetta 4. It would be another spin-off like Bayonetta Origins. This next spin-off could likely focus on Jeanne, as Bayonetta Origins ended with a special chapter dedicated to her and indicating she started forming some sort of plan to counter Singularity as far back as when she was a child. So, perhaps this spin-off game could explore her plan throughout the years and maybe even be far more action-oriented than Cereza and the Lost Demon was. I say all this, but I'll admit, this entire idea is a pipe dream and more of a personal wish more than anything, so let's get into what this mystery game could really be, shall we? Staying on the Platinum Games wagon for a second, we should acknowledge that it is possible the new Switch 1 game is Astral Chain 2. We know Platinum wants to make it. We know we want it. We know Nintendo wants to invest in this franchise. We know the first game sold decently well. We shouldn't count this one out. It's niche, it's beloved, it's supremely action-oriented and unique with its dual character control. But hopping off the Platinum Games wagon, finally, let's look at Paper Mario. Some might argue this isn't niche because it's Mario, but when you look at sales for this sub-series by comparison to its main series counterparts, it's clear that this is easily classified in the cult classic territory. It sells a fraction of what main series Mario games sell, and even a fraction of other Mario spin-offs like Mario Kart, which, as I mentioned earlier, actually sells better than the mainline Mario games. Paper Mario, as a franchise though, has not only been a cult classic spin-off series for a long time, but has seen a resurgence of sorts thanks in great part to Paper Mario and the Origami King. This was Paper Mario's highest selling game in years, clocking in at over 3 million sales and paving the way for Paper Mario to make another return shortly after, with the remake of Thousand Year Door. Origami King is actually the second best-selling Paper Mario game of all time, only losing out to Super Paper Mario, which sold over 4 million copies. Couple this with the fact that Origami King came out in 2020, a 5-year gap for a brand new Paper Mario game means we might be prime time for the next entry. Similarly to how Paper Mario is niche, even though its main series counterpart isn't, we can look at two other Nintendo franchises with spin-off series that fit this bill. So let's go ahead and look at those now. First, there's Pokemon. Pretty much any Pokemon spin-off series sells a fraction of what main series does. There's a few options for what we can look at here, but I think the most likely one is the Mystery Dungeon series. We could finally see our desired Pokemon Mystery Dungeon 2 remake. It's the most popular and beloved game in the spin-off series, and many of us have expressed deep interest in seeing it make a comeback on a modern system. Personally, I'd actually just prefer a virtual console edition of Explorers of Time Darkened Sky with Nintendo Online or something, since I adore the original's art style so much, but I also might be convinced to get a full-on remake if it's done right. We could also see a new PMD altogether. This would usher in a complete revival for the spin-off series, and since it wouldn't be a remake, I would be extremely interested in seeing the formula fully modernized and refreshed. Like Paper Mario and Pokemon, Zelda has a niche spin-off series as well, Hyrule Warriors. With Tears of the Kingdom being so successful, I wouldn't be surprised if Nintendo wanted to capitalize on this one last time before moving on to Switch 2. Similar to Age of Calamity, this new Warriors game could focus on the Battle of the Sages in Ganondorf. That would mean more time travel shenanigans and more plot holes, but hey, at this point, does anyone even care anymore? Nintendo sure doesn't seem to, so they'll probably say, hey, why not? Money. I'm hoping this isn't the game that they're planning on, but we can't deny it's a definite possibility, so we had to talk about it. But our next suspect for what could be Nintendo's third banger slated for the Switch One's final year, and the one I think is the most likely culprit here, is Fire Emblem. Fire Emblem is the epitome of niche within the Nintendo fan base, and those that love it love at least one of its games to death. It's definitely a series that each entry hits a different note with its general audience. Some of the fanbase prefer Three Houses' more story-oriented approach. Others much prefer the gameplay-centric approach of Awakening and Engage. Whatever the preference, there's a fanbase that views the series, or at least one game in the series, with extremely loving eyes. The sales also strike this as a cult classic, typically reaching a couple million or so. The series isn't as successful as Smash Bros. Would have you believe with its overrepresentation on the character roster, but it's by no means a failure commercially. Also, I guess these games aren't that hard to make because Three Houses and Engage didn't release all that far apart when you consider the DLC also developed for them. So, a third Switch game really could be on the horizon. And again, I do think this is most likely the title we'll see helping send off the Switch 1, alongside the likes of Pokemon Legends EA and Metroid Prime 4. Now, I am just one person, so I know for a fact there are plenty of niche Nintendo exclusives I didn't even think to talk about here. So comment them down below so I can have all of my wow, I can't believe I didn't think of that moments, and we can all laugh or cry. If you'd like to support me and have your name featured at the end of all of my videos, click the Patreon link in front of you or feel free to become a channel member. Afterwards, check out more of my videos, like this one here where I explore the recent leaks regarding if Pokemon Legends EA will be on the Switch 2 after all. I've been johtojonny, and I will catch you all there.